It's the Spicer here from the Gunpla Network, and welcome to the Gundamstorian podcast. This episode of the Gundamstorian podcast comes to you courtesy of Side 7 Exports. Side 7 Exports is your one-stop shop for all your P-Bandai and Gundam-based exclusive needs. After checking out their catalog, don't forget to use the promo code GunplaNetwork10 for 10% off.
Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 4 of the Gundamstorian Lore Podcast. I'm not your host, Pat.
I'm also
joining
not
us
your
today.
host, Chris.
Wait, does that mean I'm the host, the Spicer?
The Spicer?
Yes, you are our host.
Okay. I guess since I'm judging this week, I'm the host.
No pressure. No pressure.
All right.
And via remote, our our esteemed colleague, Mr. Zappa, who's in the field.
And possibly in a combat zone, collecting intel for us.
This is very important intel since we're covering the worst Gundams and worst mobile suits this month on the podcast, and he'll be bringing us back some interesting intel pretty soon.
So today we are going to go over the worst MS and worst suit that we have chosen and try to convince Cody that we have picked the worst ones.
Yeah, so pretty much similar thing to last time. We didn't have a lot of ground rules outside of, one Gundam, one grunt suit, because it's kind of hard to compare between the two. Pilots are largely irrelevant, but we do have some honorable mentions for some really markedly bad pilots, and we left it open to any universe, and you will definitely see that in some of these picks. So we'll do the same thing as last time. Everyone will introduce their picks, both of them Gundam and then grunt suit. We'll start with the Gundam teams as far as the arguments after that, and go from there. So who would like to try to convince me first?
Well, I'm sure Zappa would probably be... in fact, I think we're hearing him getting his broadcast in now.
Hello, it's your boy Zappa, King of the Giant Robots, on special assignment thanks to my channel sponsor. Dr. Akumo is quite pleased with the turnout from our previous podcast, so he has me on site at an undisclosed enemy base. Right. Once upon a time, I was known as a professional stage ninja. I think he's taking the ninja part a little too literally. But I digress. Word was, you have chosen the topic of the worst of mobile suits and Gundams across the Gundam franchise. I just so happen to be looking at some schematics here. Let me find you some okay, this looks like a hot mess. This is the Gundam Throne Dry. The Throne Dry being the second of the Throne Gundams. It's a support unit, and typically support units are not very combat capable, but this one, just not. It has a long rifle, and a couple of knives, and it does little else for combat. So once as a standalone, it's just trash. You can't really... A Gundam should not be a support unit. A mobile suit should be a support unit. You have the Eins, it has the big go away railgun. You have the Zwei, it's got the big sword, it's got the fangs. The Dry, okay, sure, it has the GN stealth field, but how long is that even good for? You're like spitting out particles constantly. And then, to boot, when it comes to video games, the only time the dry even appears in a video game is in Gundam Extreme Versus. You set yourself up with trying to use the unit's gimmick in that game. Yes, you do prevent enemies from locking onto you and your ally, but you stand there and do nothing in the process. And unless you know how to do it, you're just going to go floating up into the air and set yourself up for failure. Not to mention, frankly, like, you look at the big GN drive that it has, and it's already outclassed within months. The Tau drive is slapped on a bunch of mobile suits, and it's outclassed. Quickly, terribly. It becomes obsolete within months. A Gundam should not be obsolete within months of rollout. Months. And then, like, to say nothing of its pilot, Tau drives are just cancer. Hello? Damn it. They actually deployed one. Hold on. I'll be back in a moment.
Well, that was interesting.
Oh, so it was all about the Gundam thrown dry. Yeah, that thing is useless.
It's it's a Gundam, and it's not great, so it fit very well.
Yeah, what are you going to do with a mobile battery pack for the other guy's big gun?
Sounds like a portable explosive device to me.
It's just actually a bomb. They just didn't tell them. And it's just like, oh yeah, here's the battery. Don't worry about it. And
Yeah, it's...
Oh yeah, and what was that about cancer?
Yeah, it's made up of Sony laptop batteries, so they explode really good.
I thought it was composed of Samsung Galaxy S7s.
I was going to say that, but I couldn't remember which S it was.
Oh dear.
Maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe they found it in a landfill somewhere and they're like, oh, I remember these. Let's put them all together.
That will totally work.
Yeah, it's a Gundam, and it's powered by a dirty bomb. What? Well, come on. Producing enriched, refined lithium creates a lot of toxic waste. Let's not kid ourselves.
So this does bring up, this doesn't really tie into anything. This is just, from me noticing something, I guess.
Pardon me.
So, when did Pacific Rim come out? What year? Does anyone know off the top of their head?
The original manga?
No, the movie,
or
when the
2017.
Okay, so quite a bit after Gundam 00 had aired. 'Cause I just thought about that. I was like, they get cancer in the first one, too, after, piloting, right? Wasn't that Idris Elba's whole thing?
Well, think about it. Even if you were to make it out of, one of those robots out of, the strongest, lightest a metal that's actually durable that we have available on planet Earth, you're making it out of cobalt. We do not mix well with cobalt as a general natural rule.
Cobalt is radioactive?
It's not so much that it's radioactive. It's just it also interacts with oxygen in a toxic manner to living mammal types, i.e. us.
So it's like mercury. Instant.
It'd be like mercury on steroids.
Poison. I happen to know the year because I just watched the movie because I watched the excellent anime on Netflix.
I haven't watched it yet, so that's
if you want to watch the most horrendous B movie based off of it ever, look up Atlantic Rim.
Oh, I've seen it. Oh my god, I've seen it.
MST3K covers it, and my god, is it awful.
If my recommendation is that you watch the first two movies first and then the anime on Netflix, and it'll make a bit more sense because it kind of happens chronologically that way.
I see. And here I thought they were actually completely separate
And
stories.
if you watch Pacific Rim Uprising, which I just did a couple days ago, there is a Gundam Unicorn cameo in the movie. Because they end up
Cool.
fighting in Japan.
Oh, so they're in front of Diver City.
I believe so, yes.
That makes sense.
But the statue in the movie, it seems much smaller than in real life.
Well, no, that's because whatever they're called. It's something
Oh,
German.
No, no.
They're-
No, it's
they're-
when people are
Yeah, the Jaegers.
people are next to it. It's like that's not quite the right scale.
Oh,
Jaegers, but they're Jaegers.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Jaegers are like 80 meters tall.
Oh yeah.
Compared to your average tall-ish Gundam at like 20. So
I love Pacific Rim. It's one of my favorite movies. Just seeing giant robots beat the living, you know what, out of just kaijus is just fantastic. I hope they make another Pacific Rim movie. Just so
Never
they can
know.
pound the crap out of each
all
other.
right, all right, Chris, who wants to go next? You or me about their chosen?
I will go
worst
next.
Gundam. Oh, goody.
I'm going to pick on G Gundam this time. There were a lot of choices with G Gundam, I have to admit. But the one that gets my goat the most is the Nether Gundam. Have you seen the Nether Gundam, Cody?
Which country does that come from again?
The Netherlands.
Oh, I guess that would make sense. Is that the stupid Windmill Gundam?
That is the stupid Windmill Gundam, also known as the Hurricane Gundam.
That's a
And it'll take all of your love, sorrow, and pain every single time.
So he's basically a windmill with shoulders and arms, a head, and these horrible looking legs. But I think the worst part about this this Gundam, is that he can't use his arms because he has a spinning windmill on his chest. So all he can basically do is walk around with his arms at his sides. And I don't even know what weaponry this thing has. Oh, it's got a mega beam cannon that is mounted on the chest and shoulders. So if he shoots up the wrong time, he's shooting off his beautiful windmill.
I'm sure it has some synchronization technology built in so that it doesn't actually shoot the blades
Well,
off.
considering that he
In fact,
can't use his arms, I'm going to say no, there probably isn't.
yeah, like from
In fact, I'm willing... Okay.
I was saying,
Sorry.
like, from a design perspective, yeah, you think they would have put it on the back because it makes so much more sense as a backpack.
No, on his arm, like a shield.
Oh yeah,
Like-
that would have made sense too.
Now, see,
Like on his forearm.
I can see the point of it being on where it is on its gut, like a championship belt, because then you've got that whole propeller razor blade, hip thrust, buzzsaw attack thing. It's facing the wrong direction. It's perpendicular of what you want.
It's not actually a melee weapon. It does a Nether Typhoon, a mighty wind attack that is generated by the spinning windmill blades.
Okay, that see, if you were to tell me like freaking one of the Mega Man bosses, I think it's not Windman, it's like Gale Man or something like that, who actually has like giant air vortex generator cannons for arms. Him doing that makes sense because they actually look like big ass jet engines for hands. I'm gonna have to look that up so we actually have a shot
That sounds like
later.
Airman from Mega Man 2.
Yeah, Airman. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Airman makes sense. They at least make his design make sense for
And
that. Nether Gundam. Hey, look at me! I'm a windmill with legs and arms
And like an Airman,
and.
they put the turbine inside of his chest so he can actually use his arms.
Then again, using air as a weapon with super robots is kind of a meh
Okay, another feature
kind of weapon. Anyway.
another feature of this Gundam is that there is Windmill Mode.
Let me guess, it's a Transformer?
It's a Transformer. Somehow, he retracts his legs into the lower torso, and his shoulders and arms disappear, and he looks like a friggin' windmill.
Now I can hear it now.
Yeah, but where does his arms and shoulders go? There's no possible way that both shoulders will fit in the top of this windmill.
Don't question it.
He's also got a flight mode where he I can't even say it. He retracts his legs into his body again, and then the windmill comes off his chest and goes where his feet were.
So he's a giant flying torpedo.
Yes.
Interesting.
I'm sorry. This is totally cracking me up.
Okay, that puts my guy to shame.
This is the stupidest thing ever. I'm sorry.
I want to be the devil's advocate here and be like, you know, like in G Gundam they use all kinds of stupid like forces to fight with. Like the first guy has like light that shoots out of his leg that is a weapon or some shit. I don't remember, but like,
yep.
I would give Windmill credit. The air, like the Nether Typhoon or whatever that attack's called, sure. But yeah, just sitting here staring at it. It's just like the more you look at it, the more is wrong with it.
Here, I'm gonna put some pictures into Discord here to further my argument here, which I'm sure will be included in the video later. So the top picture is flight mode, and the bottom picture is windmill mode.
Huh.
Oh yeah, no, I figured out where he hides the arms in that actually, just by looking at it.
Flight mode actually brings an interesting question up. Can he move? Like, we don't see it, of course, and we never will, because it's not like the Netherlands Gundam is going to get included in anything again ever, but...
P. Bondi.
This would be the, like, most out-of-left-field P. Bondi. Like, at least the Tequila Gundam, people are like, we actually kind of want it as a meme. No one wants this, even as a meme. But, like...
Well, they want Tequila Gundam because the Desperado mod...
that is true.
Build Divers was sexy as all hell. It was like Clint Eastwood was made into a Gundam.
Yeah.
That's true, but like even before that, like the Tequila Gundam just had a reputation, and I get the vibe it was because it was named Tequila Gundam. But like no other side G Gundam suit has that kind of a thing. I mean, mostly because they're stupid.
It looked like Pancho Villa's Rough Riders, man. It was totally cool.
Like, it would be interesting to see if any of the other build series into the future can make other random G Gundam things cool, because there are some decent designs, but I mean, this is not one of them. But for flight mode, he moves the windmill thing to his feet somehow magically. Don't know how that happens.
Magnets.
But it makes me think, I wonder if he can move it other places, because, like, if he can move it other places, it may not be a big hindrance in combat.
Like on his head?
Anywhere. Just literally anywhere else but the middle of his chest. Like, okay, I guess on his shoulders, if it was in the X formation, it would still be a pain. But, yeah, like his back, anywhere, his arm, his head. Forearms. There's so many other places that it would make more sense. But that's okay, whatever. Netherlands, good job.
Could we just do a podcast where we roast all the G Gundams? All the bad ones?
There's a lot of bad ones.
Like GG Gundam and Mermaid Gundam. And Pharaoh Gundam 4 was way cooler than Pharaoh 8. Because at least Pharaoh 4 was a mummy.
Canadian Gundam was cool.
Yeah, Grizzly Gundam.
Lumber Gundam was awesome. He needs a hockey stick, though.
So
it's a lumberjack.
This actually, like, this would be a cool concept to make just, like, the worst design in all of G Gundam. Because, like, you could not only just focus on what we see in animation, but there's, like, a bunch of just, like, MSVs and mangas that just like cover other versions of these that look way worse. So yeah,
like the one that's like shaped like a bell.
I have no idea what that one is, but I'm not surprised.
Or even ones that appeared in the anime, like Walter Gundam. Like, what was up with
Walter
that?
Gundam?
Yes, Walter Gundam.
That was the English Gundam, right?
No, that was the weird thing that was basically a Gundam head in a ball with mecha tentacles.
Oh, that. Okay, yeah.
That was like the mid-boss thing you see show up in the Build Divers when they're about to face a boss, and then the Devil Gundam shows up and breaks the freaking program.
Okay, that's another stupid Gundam, but that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah. Devil is the invincible thing that died from the power of love, because apparently the Care Bears are still relevant.
Can you stick a picture of Walter in the Discord?
Yeah, I gotta find him. Hang on.
I can't touch my keyboard because it makes very loud clicky noises.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, okay. I got a picture of him right here.
Huh.
I wonder if this will work.
So this is,
Pardon me.
because like I'm looking at the wiki for the Nether Gundam now, just because I want to see if it's got any other stupid modes we don't know about yet.
Oh, that thing. Okay, Walter Gundam.
Yeah, head in a ball.
Great, good job, Walter.
It's like a Harrow on bad times killed a Gundam and sort of ate it, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically. Well, I mean, the actually it gets more ridiculous because the Walter is basically Devil Gundam Light.
Oh,
right?
okay.
It's got this ridiculous looking, creepy tripod standing mode.
Is this in the anime or just in the manga?
It was in the anime. They fought at least like 2 or 3 of these things, from what I remember. Like, oh no, they had screen time.
Okay, I'll never watch G Gundam, so.
I got through about 8 episodes before I was like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that concludes my argument for the Nether Gundam.
Okay. Oh, wow, there's just a lot of weird things in this wiki for this ridiculous Gundam. So there are a couple of questions I do have before we get into Pat's here. Well, actually, yeah, okay. Well, we'll ask questions first, I guess. So it didn't dawn on me until I saw this. There's a screen cap from like the end of G Gundam, which of course none of us have watched in like the last decade, so it's not like we remember. But there are a bunch of Nether Gundams in space fighting the Devil Gundam. And I was like, that's weird, but I know they've like reused animation and stuff, because like the Wing Gundam and the Zeta Gundam and stuff appear in it as well, because there's like, we need a bunch of things. But anyway, the Nether Gundam's a mass production mobile suit, which is really weird, but it does like mention that, and it shows multiple in different things.
I see that, yeah.
Alongside the mermaid.
Yeah, and like multiple mermaid Gundams too. Like,
and if you look in the back, you can see there's lobster Gundams.
Yep. Oh my god. And the one freaking
lobster Gundams.
Other machine. It looks like a one of those predatory anglerfish.
It doesn't even look like a mobile suit. It just literally looks like an anglerfish. Like they didn't even do anything to it.
The mermaid Gundams really remind me of Sharkticons.
Oh yeah, those were terrible. No, here's some more random ridiculous lore for you. The Nether Gundam actually gets a cameo in Turna.
Turn-A?
Because it's one of the Turna Gundam. Yeah, one of the because it's one of the mobile suit specs that the one guy from Ameria, the leader there, ends up downloading from the moon before he just GTFOs and freaking 8.6s it out of there.
What a useless schematic to download. Like, good on you, guy. Just
Right?
wrecking the game, friend.
Like, look at the one,
Of
the
all
one in the
the
middle there.
things.
He has to, like, stick his arms between the windmill, like...
Yeah.
Like...
Or even
What a-
or even the one picture where there's like 4 of them just standing there.
Are they just, like, for lack of a better term, meat shields for the real Gundams, or...
Given they even have a screenshot of what appears to be a Don Quixote wannabe
That's
charging
from Build
it,
Fighters.
that's ridiculous. Oh, it is a Build Fighters.
It's like, being mass production kind of made me think, okay, maybe that this appeal for this mobile suit is like, it's supposed to fight in numbers, and then maybe it would be okay. Which is, I guess, still a possibility, but it says that it got to the finals in the anime by not fighting anyone, which I guess was an option, which seems incredibly strange.
Yeah.
And, like, it hid, so
Well,
it is good camouflage, but I don't know who else outside of, like, parts of Europe have windmills like this, but I guess apparently no one thought about it. And then just gets super wrecked very quickly by Gundam Rose. So it's obviously not very combat effective and just ugly as sin.
Well, the thing is when he goes into Windmill Mode, he's got that very prominent V-fin on the front.
Yeah. See, that's just it, though. The whole thing, like, you'd be surprised. There's plenty of these old Dutch-styled windmills all over the place, even in North America, because,
Oh, God.
we are countries of immigrants over here. And Chris knows what I'm talking about, because there are entire cities of some of these specific European immigrant populations in Canada. Not or at least descendants of them, right? It won't be right for me to say that they are exactly that, because, it's been a few generations, but they do exist. And some of those cultural norms did follow, including these ridiculous old Dutch
Would they be the
windmills.
right size? Like now that I'm looking at it, it's supposed to be 17 meters tall. But
Yeah.
So if it lost its legs, say that's like a third of its height, that's like still like
It's still
14, 15?
Yeah.
Are those windmills that
Yeah.
tall?
Yes,
Yeah,
they are.
They're pretty big, yeah.
Yep, because remember, you gotta grind flour on something.
guess that's
Between two giant stones, right? So,
You're not doing the spinning, so somebody's got to do it, or something has to do it.
I put another picture into Discord showing the flight mode.
Yep, noted.
God, that thing is like, there's a bunch of ridiculous designs, but this one's just like,
Okay, if
they
you
threw
want to
this
take
together.
if you want to take note
Oh.
at the length of his arms, how does the windmill get to the bottom?
This is an interesting
I did
point.
like your like sarcastic response of magnets earlier. It's got to be something where it detaches and reattaches or something. Like,
Are you telling me that's got like mini thrusters on it that takes it off his chest and sticks it on the bottom?
it has to like it.
Why
couldn't
not?
I mean, I guess it could fold in on itself somehow, and I don't know. G Gundam technology is dumb, but. Okay, so the Windmill Gundam, we've concretely made a decision that's really ridiculous. Pat, what do you have for me?
Okay, so mine is a little less on the holy cow, why does this exist thing, and more of a why sort of scenario. Because I've chosen for my entry into our little debate to be the MSZ-008 Zeta 2.
Okay.
It's the
Now,
one with the really
what-
tall backpack thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
basically, short version is it is literally a Methus on steroids with a Zeta Gundam's head.
Okay.
Right. All right.
That is the simplest way to describe it, which is why it's kind of a meh design, and why I find, at least in terms of Universal Century, for considering all of the other machines that somehow get the name Gundam slapped to them, and believe me, there are quite a few if you decide to peruse through the different manga over the years. I even considered the Half Gundam, but the Half Gundam was still useful and actually capable of doing
They don't
stuff.
actually refer to this as a Gundam, though.
That's just it. It still technically is, because it's the Zeta.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Zeta Second, right? It's still a prototype attack use modable suit, and because of that, it's still kind of
Interesting.
gets
it gets
that.
developed into the RGZ-95 Rezel.
Yeah, well, no, it's not that it gets developed into it. It is its data is used in the Rezel's actual development itself, because the thing that Camille did a great job designing what he wanted to do with the Zeta, and then Anaheim just made it happen since they already had the Delta Gundam more or less figured out. Even back then, yeah, spoilers, if you haven't seen, or if you've seen Unicorn and wondered how the Delta Plus ever came to be, yeah, it was ready back in Zeta. Char just didn't want to use it.
Huh. Okay.
What the idea was behind the Zeta 2 was the Methus, in terms of its being able to turn into a mobile armor to apparently move faster because all of its thrusters were pointing in the same direction. They decide to try and apply that very, very literal two-step transformation sequence, so simple, so effective. They want to try and merge that with the Zeta Gundam. So the Zeta 2 was actually their first step towards trying to figure out how to mass produce the Zeta. And the result was this kind of cool if you like heels, but what the heck is it actually anyway kind of machine. And the reason I don't find it to be very appealing in terms of what it is and what it's supposed to do is, sure, great, so you can move around a little faster in space. It can probably fly on the moon on its own, under its own power, sure. But it can't survive re-entry, unlike its predecessor. So what good is it already? And it can't fly in atmosphere under its own power, even in mobile armor mode.
So it seems to me that it's a high-performance grunt suit that's masquerading as a Gundam.
Basically.
And you know what? I don't mind it, but I think, honestly, it would look better if you took those ridiculous legs and feet off and then just put, like, a couple of Sentinel boosters underneath it or something.
Actually, that's one of the things I actually like. The build, I think it was Build Fighters that ended up doing it. In one of the spin-off manga was what they dubbed the ZZ2, which I actually have the high-grade model of.
Yeah, like,
let me grab
everything is fine with this, except the legs, the knees.
But it's so useless.
Those feet look like a certain male body part.
Yes, well, like I said,
does it not?
It's got heels. Versus the Build Fighters version of it, the ZZ2, which is still basically... Oh, what the heck did it do there? Oh, it didn't do what I wanted to.
Yeah, I don't think you put it where you wanted it to.
No, I did not. So let's try this. There we go. Whereas the ZZ2...
that is actually worse.
...is a little bit more practical.
Yeah, everything...
You might say that, but it's actually more practical than
it looks
the
like
Zeta
they
2.
took a double Zeta Gundam and, like, crushed it vertically, and then gave it ridiculous feet.
Now you know how I feel about the Zeta 2.
Okay.
I actually like the I actually like the Z2 better.
That's a scary thought. But in terms of its actual like usefulness, the Zeta 2 served its only real purpose and only actually got like real real canonical like action when they decide to make the missing link, and then it's not Flight of the Walpurgis. I can't even say that word right. Walpurgis. No, still said wrong. Walpurgis. Yeah. Which, whatever. There's a lot of new stuff being crammed into that period of about 3 years that I'm not able to keep track of all of it.
Are you trying to...
But the idea was...
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. The idea was, yeah, Travis Kirkland ended up getting one, and that's when it started to become a little more mainstream than just some random picture in the Zeta MSV.
No, that actually looks better, except for those damn feet again.
Yeah, but again, that's still Kirkland's toy, right? And of course, this thing... in its so-called Wave Rider mode, no, don't. I don't know why they even tried to call it that. It's not. It's a mobile armor mode. It's just a Super Methus, and there's already a Super Methus. From a practical standpoint, it was literally just a stepping stone. It was not worth actually fielding this thing, but they did anyway.
Just to get blown up on the front lines.
No, Travis Kirkland piloted it, so he was one of those badass old types. He made it not suck somehow.
Oh, he's in the PS3 game that I own. Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah, he's in Missing Link. Yeah. Kirkland gets one, and I forget what he does, but he tracks Zeke's down.
I need to play that game more
with it. Actually, no, was it in that, or does he get it in 0090? I think they give it to him in 0090, and there's a separate manga for that, and Kirkland uses it to some semi-decent effect.
It's the Mirage of Zeon.
Yeah,
Double Zeta side story Mirage of Zeon manga.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where Kirkland gets it. Give it to him is in 0090.
Sorry, that was a mouthful.
So, I mean... It, considering it was produced in UC 0088, or at least it was thought up then, and then they went straight to the Double Zeta, because clearly that was way better. It makes you wonder who had the money to burn to bring that thing to life in the first place.
Huh.
But I can't top a freaking windmill with arms and legs, and seemingly the inability to find a useful spot for its stupid propeller.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know that there's much out there that can. I mean, yeah, the Zeta 2 seems like it's, for when it is created, outclassed by a lot of things that either already existed or existed very close to it.
More or less. Like, it was obsolete 10 minutes after it was built. At least. If not before it was built.
Maybe like I said earlier, it's a grunt suit, but maybe shaping it like a Gundam was to instill fear in the enemy, thinking it was a Gundam when it actually wasn't.
I mean, they've done that before.
Yep. Interesting. Okay, so...
As bad as this suit is, at least he can use his arms.
That's true.
Yeah, and his rifle doesn't suck either.
Okay, so there's that. Okay. Okay, so this is really a competition for a second, just because Windmill is just ridiculous. And, I mean, it's really hard to top that. So, the question becomes...
I just want to mention, don't forget about Battery Gundam.
Yeah, that's what the question is here. Which is worse, Battery Gundam or Super Methus?
Which, for giggles, now I'm going to bring it up because, it is actually a suit, and it was actually useful.
Can you post a picture of the Dre or whatever it's called?
I'm pulling up. Oh, sorry, it wasn't the Super Methus. It was called the Methus Kai. But you're gonna see, we're gonna see some very very obvious similarities based on the Zeta 2.
Yep, that's very similar.
Wow! Woo.
Yeah, and that thing was better than the original Methus.
I kind of like it.
Interesting.
At least it's got better feet than the Z2.
The Super Methus was honestly, from a design standpoint and performance standpoint, from what I can tell, the Super Methus. It's the Methus Kai. I want to make that clear. We keep calling it the Super Methus, but it's a Methus Kai. It was basically, they realized they had enough data from the very limited run of the mass production Zeta, which was basically the same idea as the Gym was to the Gundam. And they went, let's feed this back in to the Methus along with the data from the Zeta 2. And so you've got that ridiculous freaking nose gun coming up from behind its head, sticking out. And whatever, it just, bigger thrusters goes faster. Yay. Which is saying something.
Okay, so between Battery and Super Methus, I think, guys, that's really, really difficult to pick.
Just for clarity here, is this the suit that Zappa chose? Is that the Throne Dry?
Oh, yeah, this is the Dry, yeah.
That is the Throne Dry. Yes, the Dry.
Okay.
I'm trying to think, did the Dry get destroyed? Because I know its pilot ended up not piloting it, but did it get destroyed in 00?
Yes. It was wrecked in the second season. When Nina Trinity was operating on her own for other people as a contractor, and then I forget who showed up, but they just wrecked her like she was, last week's garbage that needed to be put out today, sort of thing. And she was lucky to have even survived. That's how bad it was.
So why are we calling this the Battery Gundam?
Because it literally plugged into the Throne Eins, so the Throne Eins could use its ginormous freaking cannon.
Specializing in supporting the two other Throne Gundams, Eins and Zwei.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. The Eins actually had a BFG that it could not use just one GN core to draw power from, or it would basically short the suit out.
It had a different GN drive too, a GN drive Tau.
Yeah, the Tau was the what they call in 00 circles as the fake GN drive.
Right, and it's red particles.
Yeah, which were actually apparently cancer causing. Whereas the Throne Dry didn't actually need any actual support. It was freaking awesome, especially when Aliel Sanchez ended up murdering the brat who was piloting beforehand and showed everybody who's boss with it.
So, okay. The Throne Dry has a couple of problems, and it's designed as a support unit, so that doesn't help. I mean, this is effectively the Methus before, or I guess after the Methus existed.
Yep.
And it has more going for it, I guess, than the Methus did. Not a lot, but, I mean, its weaponry is not great. I mean, it's got a fairly weak yields, like GN handgun, probably equivalent to Dynamus's, but you have a limited number of particles, so it's a whole kind of thing. They have a beam saber, Aegean shields, which is pretty cool, but once again, not really anything crazy. But it does have that shield field, or stealth field, where it just does the big thing where it releases particles and it screws up everybody's sensors. The X, or the Z2 doesn't have, but the Z2 does get used to some effect, like effectively by somebody at some point. By itself mostly, I guess is what it sounds like. So it's hard to say, because this all kind of in a way feels like if it had to operate on its own, it would probably operate somewhat similar to Death Scythe, where it would just do the big dispersal, go in, attack, and then leave, where nobody has communications or anything. So I see some ability, but I mean, I assume if it gets wrecked in the second season, it's probably by like the A-Laws or pretty standard mobile suits.
Yeah, it doesn't have much offensive capability at all.
Oh, it was A-Laws, all right. It was the whatchamacallit, not the Innovades ended up. One of the Innovade suits just
so like the
trashes it.
Grazzo or whatever, Gradeza, whatever those were called. Okay.
Yeah, one of those weirdly named G suits. Yeah, just completely mops the floor with it.
Okay, so I mean those suits kind of went toe to toe, not well, but I mean they could hold their own against the 00. So that's not as much. But it does get destroyed though. Okay, so I think I know. I think the least worst suit is probably the Zeta 2. Someone does use it to some extent. Well, I mean, it's still subpar for what it is, but it is an actual mobile suit that can just do things. The Battery Gundam has some capability. It could probably fight some like grunt suits and be okay, or maybe like some of the first season Gundams, but probably still get wrecked. But nothing's going to compare to the Windmill. I mean, the Windmill, it can't even fight. Like, okay, yeah, so, yeah, Zeta 2, Dry, Windmill. That's the order. That's gotta be it.
Woohoo!
Well, you chose to lose. You won.
Yeah,
That's the first time I'm excited to lose.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I've got everybody beaten the mobile suit round.
Oh, don't be too sure about that, Pat.
Now, speaking
yeah, well,
of the worst mobile suit, it sounds like Zeta's coming back in somehow.
Hello? Pat, put the RF switch on channel 4. No, not channel 3. The news is on channel 3. Put it on channel 4. There we go. I think we're in. Good. We're back. I've got more blueprints to fax over to y'all. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi signal is trash thanks to freaking Dry. So we're faxing these in post-haste. But let's take a look at this goofy little thing right here. And I'll be honest, I am a personal fan of goofy-looking things. I adore Zeon's aquatic designs. But the Zaku Tank. Just no. The Zaku Tank really... You understand that on the battlefield, you really have to work with what you have, but sometimes you should just not. A Zaku Tank should not. You're taking the lower half of a tank and putting the upper body of a Zaku on there, and in theory it should work, but not as a combat unit. It makes a better building unit, sure. Like, if war's over, a Zaku Tank as a reconstruction unit, perfectly legit. Repurpose your mobile suits when war is over. But functionally, no. You've already lost its limbs. Just take those parts and put it on another mobile suit. Don't try to retrofit something in a hurry. It's a bad idea. And more so, it's... just, once again, to speak on video games, we take a look at Dynasty Warriors Gundam, where the Zaku Tank is actually on the same tier as the ball. In Dynasty Warriors Gundam, there are 4 tiers. There's your Gundam tier, which is your typical Muso Dynasty Warriors style character, for those that have played those games. They're great, actually. Then you have your second tier, which is a few attacks removed, but you still have some high-end mobile suits, some low-end Gundams in that tier. You've got your third tier, which is your generic mass-production mobile suits, your Zakus, your gun cannon, Jinx, things like that. And then down at the final tier, with no special moves, no enhanced abilities, no physical mutations, are the Ball and the Zaku Tank. But at the very least, the Ball gets some variants in there. It gets some wonderful, glorious variants like the Shark Mouth from Igloo, and even that weirdo, the Juggler. The Juggler. There goes that try again. I'll try to call back. See, Jian.
So the Zaku Tank is pretty bad, but I have some questions about it. I don't know if it's actually a mobile suit. I mean, it's half mobile suit, so.
Well, it's like it's almost
It's a mobile armor.
like I was talking about it before, right? It's basically Zeon's attempt to save money by going all, well, we've got half-made Zakus, we've got Magellas, screw it, let's put them together. And
Apple pie pen.
sucks harder. It sucks harder than a gun tank, without its actual like artillery cannons.
So,
Like,
Which is saying something.
like this thing has no benefit. You've taken the torso of a Zaku and stuck it on tank treads. What's it gonna do? Is it gonna tank tread up to somebody and use its heat hawk on it, or like? He's got no long range.
It's gonna just
long range weaponry. Like
long range.
And
then
I can't talk.
It's really funny that that Zappa bothered to mention the Gym Juggler.
I don't know anything about the Gym Juggler.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's take a moment to get a message from our sponsor.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gundamstorian Lore Podcast here on the Gunpla Network. Today's investigation is brought to you by Side 7 Exports. Side 7 Exports is your one-stop shop for all your P-Bandai and Gundam base exclusive needs. When placing your order with Side 7, don't forget to use our promo code GUNPLANetwork10 for 10% off your entire order.
Welcome back. And so, regarding the Gym Juggler, so this guy, who, boy, you thought Windmill Gundam was bad? Boy, have I got a treat for you guys. Its official model enumeration is the RGM-79ARA.
The hell
formerly
is this thing?
Formerly known as the RGM-79X-PT. The Gym Juggler is the Federation's attempt at trying to keep up with being hip and cool with Zeon's new type mobile armors after they're fielded in combat for the first couple of times. Since, the Federation knew literally zip and had zero interest in developing new type systems. And so they decided they were going to try and at least fake it. So what they ended up doing was they ended up taking this weird two-seater trainer gym.
Oh, that's why it
and they started modifying the crap out of it.
That's why it looks so chunky.
Yeah, it's chunky because it's a two-seater.
It's a chunky monkey.
Because one pilot seat is devoted to actually piloting the machine, and the other seat which normally would have been the trainer's, cluster and seat and setup, is actually devoted to the the remote gunner, aka why it's called the gym juggler, because it's got balls, and not the kind that are meant for any kind of fortitude or gusto or things like that. It has
they actually took
RB-79 balls that have been modified with twin
beam rifles.
Now, I want to say those are supposed to be... No, they're not beam rifles. You can't get that kind of output on a ball. No, they're equipped with twin... they're higher caliber...
Rifles of some kind.
Semi-automatic rifles. Or automatic rifles of some kind. I'm pretty sure they're...
Vulcan guns.
That's it? No.
Yeah, and in the hand is an MG79 90mm bullpup machine gun.
Yeah. The gym has a standard bullpup rifle, but I could have swore
they're just 60mm Vulcan guns according to the wiki here.
So the wiki and Mecha HQ have beam rifles on those balls.
Yeah, they have. Yeah,
the Vulcans are the
okay.
head
So the balls are using beam rifles.
Oh,
which means the balls
it doesn't say anything about
the condensers.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it does.
My bad.
The balls have, I guess, same style as the Gundam. They've got built-in energy condensers.
Yeah, they'll have their own Minovsky particle generators per
rifle.
ball, so it might actually...
No.
No?
That's just it. Balls don't have the kind of reactor that can output Minovsky particles.
If they're taking these things and sticking them on a GM, there's no need for a pilot inside, so maybe they put Minovsky reactors in these things. Who knows?
That's possible, but regardless, they've been modified to friggin' hold these beam rifles, and they're wire guided, and it's so piss poor that every gunner who's ever used them, and the pilot who's been mentioned canonically has been Bernard Mancha. Well, actually, and oddly enough, in some of the SD Gundam G Generation games, Mula Flaga apparently uses it. Like, okay, when did he cross over into Universal Century?
Right? Wow, the game has the game is called SD Gundam G Generation Gather Beats. So with a title like that, anything's possible.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Be like Zappa mentioning that random freaking green-haired granddaughter of Char's from last podcast that literally nobody has heard of.
He's got all the inside information.
He gets it
clearly
from the games that he plays, right? So
yeah.
Yep.
Now I have to admit, if they had used like a different GM, like just an RGM-79 or whatever, and done this, I think it would look way better because that training GM is just so chonky.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The Federation doesn't know dick about new types. So, until the end of the war, the 1-year war, when they actually, forced Zeon, what remained in Side 3, to actually surrender, and they got their hands on the actual Psychomu technology that Zeon was using in machines like the Element, and the Zeong, and what was the other one? The Big Row, stuff like that. They were faking it, which is why they needed the 2-seater, and why they needed the second guy to operate the juggler balls, which could be detached and controlled via remote controlled via a wire assembly.
Oh.
But by the time they actually got that gym juggler to how we see it in its profile pictures, or even in the manga shot that we're looking at right now, where it's being all, I'm cool, let me flex my beams, man. The war was already over. they had basically given that to the Murasame Institute at that the Titans had established for new type research, and number 0, Murasame, aka Proto Zero, was its test pilot.
So just to
point.
clarify, Zappa's pick for the mobile suit, is it the Juggler or the Zaku Tank?
Zappa's is the
for
Zaku Tank for the mobile suit, and the Juggler's for Pat, I think.
Yeah, Jim Juggler's for me.
I'm sorry.
Jim
My
Juggler.
bad. My bad.
Yeah. So, in retrospect, this gem was so useless, it never got fielded.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
And it faked what it was supposed to do. They even tried sticking new types in this thing, and the new types were like, well, how the hell am I supposed to use this?
So is this
There's no response.
Is this another case of a grunt unit that is supposed to psychologically scare the enemy just by its appearance and not its
not even
performance?
No, this was literally an attempt at keeping up appearances and failing at it so hard that it was embarrassing. Right? Because like I said, there's no research into new types on the Federation side for the majority of the 1 year war. And then the Zeeks start rolling out, the big row. I think it's the big row, not the broad row. And the Elemeth. And they're getting reports that from the EFSF that Solomons are getting blown up left and right, and they never see it coming. Or then the reports from the White Base after Amuro ends up freaking taking down the big row. And they're like, because they got nothing. So that was their attempt. And I don't even think they tried to hide that they were developing the Gem Juggler, just hiding, classifying and hiding away its actual specs as to how its remote weapon system operated. Which was so embarrassing, they should have kept it a secret.
Okay, I mean...
But yeah, it never saw combat. It never saw real combat.
So, like, from a concept perspective, it's not awful. I mean, it's not a great idea, but it's still, like...
It was literally an attempt to keep up appearances, but because they literally had no research, they did not have any of even the most basic technology to apply to it to work the way they desired it to. They needed the two-seater to feign the appearance of that.
So, to make the appearance that they had some kind of functioning Saikamu suit, they had this thing with the...
They literally had a gunner in
ball.
the back seat working the detachable balls through a remote wire. And it was really crappy, super laggy controls from all the data I've found on it. It was terrible.
There were lots of Xeon suits that had the pseudo Saikamu system in it, like the Hama Hama.
The bra. Yeah, well, that was later, right? This is the 1 year war still.
Oh, okay, this is all... Okay, 7-9, okay.
Like I said, the Bra-Bro, the Elemeth, even the Saikomu system Zaku.
Yeah.
The new type mobility test Zaku, or the Zeong. The Zeong terrified everybody when they got wind of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Saikomu system worked. And then here's this thing.
How's that supposed to go up against the Zeong?
You tell me.
Okay, so we've got the Zaku Tank, the Juggler, and Chris, what have you brought for us today?
Oh, you're gonna love this. This is the EMS-05. Now, strangely enough, I found this under two different names. On MAHQ, it's listed as the EMS-05ACG, and then on Gundam Wiki, it's the EMS-05AGG. So I'm not sure of its actual title. So anyway,
I've heard it called AG and AGU.
yeah, and I also
Both are considered
so I'm
legitimate.
posting a picture of it here in Discord. This is a
Okay.
Zeonic.
Yep.
This is a Zeonic mobile suit used during the 1 Year War. Its sole purpose is to
confused.
juice lemons for the soldiers. Just kidding. No.
That would be a good purpose for it.
I mean, it may as well.
It does look like a juicer. Here is an alternate picture with some missile pods.
You mean when it's actually useful? Maybe.
So the sole purpose of this Zeon suit is not an offensive weapon of any kind. They designed it for when they had to burrow into Jaburo.
Okay.
It is a tunneling device. Its main armaments are laser torch, the digging implements on its arms, and a 4-tube missile pod and a 4-tube missile launcher. It doesn't have...
AKA... Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
It doesn't have legs or feet. It has hovercraft implements. So it can hover around. So it doesn't actually walk. It just hovers around. If you see in the first pic, it kind of looks like a hovercraft underneath there.
Yeah, it's little pillows.
And... yeah, little pillows.
Well, I mean, how else would you describe that?
Um,
I assume the laser torch is the weird snout protrusion proboscis thing.
yeah, as we'll never see it in an actual anime, I'll have to say yes. Now, I want to show you this picture here. This is a promotional. I think it's out of an old MSV catalog. But look what they've pictured with this horrendous thing.
The Zaku Tank. That's great.
I like the triple crotch cannons.
The only cool thing the Zaku Tank had for it was its like high collar looking shoulder
Yeah,
shields.
those are pretty neat.
Oh, and also the bladey things on its shoulders are rock cutters.
Yeah, that I figured for tunneling, right? It makes sense because you need to have something to carve over top of you, and not just have the
Okay.
big freaking drill bits for hands in
So
front.
Zeon went through the trouble of designing and manufacturing these. I don't know how many, of course. Just for the sole purpose of digging tunnels so their actual mobile suits can get into Jaburo.
Even though they did that using the Amazon
Yeah.
River.
I'm just reading what I'm seeing on MHAQ here.
Huh. Yeah, because
Oh my god.
like if they didn't have an aquatic entrance, it would be different because this thing would have a good purpose. Like even if it's not to move a lot of troops, a few mobile suits sneaking in would be a big deal. But they got through. Oh god.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, I mean, even if it was a land insertion, right? Because of Minovsky particle density, doing that, starting a tunnel from a few clicks out, makes sense. Which is probably what the entire purpose of that stupid thing was for. But what were they going to run in behind it? Zaku tanks?
Because of its size.
Maybe.
And a bunch of Magellas. Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean,
Or maybe
its
at
head
guys.
height is 15
it's
and a
part of
half
that family.
meters. So, I mean, it wouldn't be great, but you might be able to crouch a Zaku down to that.
Or
Yeah,
squat. Skox and Zogox.
So here's the funny thing. I actually have a model kit of this suit.
I believe it.
Okay.
They exist.
Don't know why Bandai would think that anybody would want to build this piece of shit, but
I mean, apparently someone did. Okay.
I mean, taking off one of the drills and sticking on a missile pod, and then sticking a missile pod on his head doesn't make this thing look any more threatening.
No, like...
I mean, it would if you were staring it down and you didn't have, like, your own mobile suit to go up against it.
Is it supposed to make your enemies die laughing? I mean...
Like I said, if you were one of those poor idiots who was part of one of those anti-mobile suit infantry squads, it'd still look intimidating. Because anti-mobile suit infantry squads, as far as the Earth Federation forces were concerned, were basically suicide units.
Well, I have to say, this is probably the only mobile suit that a ball could take out, as long as Hero wasn't piloting it. God, I can't talk, sorry.
Okay, so... this... Okay, so I think I already know which one I've picked, very surprisingly, for the worst, but it's once again going back to what is the second worst, because the Zaku Tank is an interesting question, because it's technically half mobile suit, right? Because it's half a Zaku. But from, like, just sheer perspective, if this was going up against, like, a Type 61 tank, it could hold armaments that would very easily dispose of it. And then we do see it a couple of times being used as, like, a construction unit. So it would have some purposes, while not being an offensive weapon. It could be useful. It still looks ugly as sin, but it is possibly, depending on its role. The Ak or Agu or whatever the hell this drill thing is.
Just call it the Og for now. It doesn't matter.
The Og has it has a purpose, and I don't know that this actually ever happened at Jaburo, so if it did and it was successful, it would work as what it's designed for. But I guess we'll never know, because the Zagox got in, so...
Sorry, according to MHAQ, the OGs were built at California base, but were never deployed.
Oh, okay. So...
That's even funnier.
As,
so they were made.
As Char Aznable discovered the secret space dock entrance to Jaburo long before the scheduled assault.
Great. Okay, so this...
So they built these things and never used them.
That's funny. But to be fair, at least they had a plan in place to use them if Char had not found the back door.
So technically that makes them even worse, because they never actually used them.
Nah, it means they were the backup plan.
Backup plan.
As I'm trying to think, if so they had them, but they didn't use them at Jaburo because they didn't need to. I can't honestly think of another instance where they would have used it. Like, 'cause we don't, like, California base was just a base. It was, like, out in the open. And we can generally assume most Federation bases were similar. I don't know.
My question is where does this come from? Where does this fit into canon? I mean, was this in the manga, or what? It's obviously not in the TV show.
It was an MSV, which means it was considered there. It just never got any screen time, right?
Oh, okay.
I could still see where there would be some use. Like, it's just hyper specific, so like it would probably do its job fairly well, I would imagine, but. Well,
until it didn't.
Yeah, like, we'll never know, because
it also appears in a manga called Mobile Suit Gundam, We're Federation Hooligans.
Interesting.
And it was designed by Kunio Okawara.
Like I said, it was part of the original MSV.
Yeah, Kunio.
Okay.
Kunio suit.
So, oh god, this is okay. So, in number 3, I'm gonna put the Zaku Tank because it has some purpose. It's not great, and it is slapdash, but if it's going up against a Type 61, it would probably win. If it's for construction or base building purposes, it's fairly useful. The question is, which is more useless? The Agu that got built and never used, or the GM Juggler that never saw combat So because in concept it sounds like, okay, maybe it would work. It's the old type version of something that could feasibly be possible only because it has beam rifles. If those were regular machine guns, this would equally be as stupid, but worse. And
I originally envisioned it with machine guns.
And the thing that gets me is, okay, so I won't count this technically because it's not really canon, but I was going to bring up Mulaflaga before I noticed he's a pilot of this because of the games, or the SD games.
Well, his Mobius was freaking fantastic, but the remote weapon systems in Seed, now I'm not even talking the Dragoons, which were great because they were wireless. The Dragoons were basically like hyper advanced drone technology as we know it now.
Yeah, and the Mobius units, like wire guided things, were actually fairly useful. Like they could harass a mobile suit like the Buster, or they could shoot down like a Jin or something like that. So there's that possibility. And I mean, I can't consider that in lore, of course, but the concept probably would have worked at least in the SD games with a very skilled pilot. But, God.
Not to mention a very skilled gunner.
Yeah, I feel like the gunner's probably more important.
You need both being half decent at what they do for this thing to work.
At least in its favor, outside of the beam rifles, which would make a big difference, it does have some of the Alex's Chobum armor on as well. Now,
I'd almost say it looks closer to like a semi-striker.
Yes, it does actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, the wiki says it's the Chobun armor had got diverted to being used.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I mean,
that makes sense.
It would maybe save it slightly if it ever saw combat, but it never did. So it's hard to really distinguish. The only thing I'd say that can be considered useful in terms of anything for this is it seems like it might have maybe not predated the like regular output beam rifles, something more than the beam spray gun, but it's hard to say. And if it was part of that development, at least helped get better beam rifles, which would be the only use. But then again, the Agu was never used was developed for a very, very specific thing that would probably never really come up again. And God, it looks so bad. Like, they both look rough.
It did appear in that manga, but we don't know how or why.
It probably was just standing there.
Okay.
It was probably target practice.
In trying to just bolster my bit, to that end, I mean, they gave it beam rifles to try and make it look intimidating. But again, this was, even when they got to this stage of it, that we see it as a finished product, it's already the end of the war.
Yeah, it's really, really,
like, just
really
like
pointless.
the egg, this thing never got used. And even when they did finally use it after the war, it was beyond obsolete already, because the Federation got their hands on Psychomu technology and they started experimenting with it.
Why did they even waste their time?
Okay.
It's such a sham, it's hilarious.
So, number 3 is the Zaku Tank, because, like I said, it has some uses. They're not great. It's not optimal, but it works. I would say the Agu will come in number 2, because had it actually been used, we can assume generally it looks like it would have worked, and Zeon was betting pretty heavily that it would. And then the GM Juggler is number 1. It's the worst out of any of them, largely due because it just never worked. And by the time it did work, like, most mobile suits already had some type of decent beam weaponry, which was, like, I mean, sure, the fake Saikamu wire-guided thing, but, like, so few machines were using that, especially after the end of the war, that it didn't matter. So yeah, it's
that-
by far the worst.
The juggler is instant landfill.
Yeah, like, why even divert the Chobham armor for this? Like, why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
It's so bad. Like, I mean, it looks good on it. Like, it doesn't look awful, but it just, like, what? Whose idea was this?
Yeah.
Just make an Alex 2. Like, it's better than this.
It's lipstick on a pig.
Pretty much, yeah. So, yeah, I think we've ironed out the worst of the worst. I don't think there's anything worse than the Nether Gundam or the Juggler.
I had a few other
But if you think there is, we want to hear it in the comments.
Yeah, tell us if we're wrong or if we're right, especially if we're right. Tell us that. We like to hear that.
And if you'd like us to do a podcast roasting all the G Gundams, please let us know. Because that, I think, would be very fun.
Yeah, especially if we started pulling from like the manga and the weird things that people aren't super familiar with. We could pull some bad looking things.
Not to mention, we'll even like try and pre-script some of the roasts so that sounds like something out of Grand Theft Auto 5. Make it real fun.
But that is the end of episode 4. Of course, if you have any other questions other than what we've mentioned, leave them down below. Of course, like it if you've enjoyed us ranting on for about an hour and 20 minutes. And
but wait, there's more.
Oh, what?
Don't forget, we gotta talk about our honor roll of particularly awful pilots.
Oh, yes, I totally forgot about that.
We can spend 5 minutes on that.
Oh yeah, that won't take us long. There's a very nice short list of this.
I only recognize one of these names, so I'll let you guys take this over.
Okay, so our undisputed worst named pilot, at least I think he's undisputed based on what I've seen and researched. Feel free to correct me, everybody out there. But the worst guy has got to be Patrick Kosauer from 00, who also makes appearances in seemingly all of the Build Divers animes as well as cameos.
He did.
Because we're talking, this guy is so full of gusto and confidence, and he keeps going back with his tail between his legs, lucky to be alive.
That is something, like, he is by far, like, in terms of piloting skills, he's awful. He is, how he got to be where he is ridiculous, but he never dies at any point. Like, even the ELS in the movie don't, like, assimilate him that I can remember.
Well, no, they don't understand him. Like, the fact that he marries, what's her name? The other battle forecaster.
That lady.
Yeah, I mean, right at the end of the final episode where he's carrying her out of the church, and he's like, I'm Patrick Kosauer the Lucky! And she's like, you're damn right you are.
Yeah, he's a terrible pilot, but he has luck on his side somehow, inevitably, all of the time. So good on you, Patrick Kosauer, for becoming a meme. Like, just that's his whole, like, he's just a meme pilot now. That's all his thing is.
Oh, yes.
This guy.
Yeah,
This guy, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, and the second guy we have on our list who has been canonically confirmed as a very awful pilot is the pilot of the S Gundam from Sentinel, known as Ryu Roots.
Oh, we've had this discussion before, haven't we?
Yes, he is canonically a shit pilot.
And the only reason he was able to pilot anything is because it was actually Alice and not him.
Yes, Alice was doing most of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Okay, and the two names I have on our fancy list for people we can argue a bit because they're a little more I'd say not so much objective. They're more based on what I've seen experience wise. Are Kuwaraki from good old Stardust Memory, and everybody's favorite villain from Victory, Chronicle Asher.
Okay, I've not watched Victory yet, so I don't know anything about Mr. Asher.
Yeah, this would have been a
Kuwaraki,
good one to have Zappa's input on since he's watched Victory.
So why is Kuwaraki considered a bad pilot?
Oh, I got you. Kowaraki's trash. Like, okay, so
he took out Gato though.
Yeah, he's a ship pilot in a good suit.
Oh, okay. So you're saying
he's like Rio Roots, except he's a little more functional.
Okay, so you're saying that the suit's done all the heavy lifting again.
I mean, think about it. In 0083, had almost anyone else been piloting any of the Gundams at any point, they would have likely fared, if not the same, much better. Like, the skilled pilots that we already see would have handled things way better.
Okay, so if you're telling me,
let's put this into perspective.
If Keith had climbed into the GPO-1 to go after the GPO-2, he would have done a better job than Ku?
Well, not Keith.
No. Okay, Chris, no. I'm saying, what if South Burning climbed into the GPO-1?
Then the show would have been game over. It would have been 2 episodes instead of 12.
Exactly.
To be fair, had Keith got in the GPO-1 and tried to chase Gato and everything, it would have still been 2 episodes just because Keith would have got shot. Like, he would have died.
No. Keith would have turned on the beam saber, tripped, and put it through the cockpit when he fell down.
Yeah. Keith would have been his own demise. He wouldn't even have got shot down by somebody.
Yeah, he would take himself out.
But yeah, like, generally speaking, as far as just regular, everyday, normal people, no new types, no, none of that. Old type pilots. Ko is at least really far down the list in terms of ability and like just every aspect of piloting. Outside of Keith, of course, who I don't even want to qualify as a pilot at this point.
You know what? He at least became an okay wingman by the end of it.
You know, what's really odd is they're both listed as test pilots. And usually test pilots are the more skilled guys that are crazy enough to go into experimental
that's the thing, though, is
or whatever.
They were more like support people for the GMC type test, right? Because they weren't actually piloting the GMC type.
Exactly. What I don't get is how Captain Synapse actually allowed them to continue.
I don't think he allowed them. I don't think he had
Formula
a choice. Especially after Burning bites it, right? So.
Well, yeah, that's after Burning. See, I'm talking before that. Sure, Ko jumped into, the GPO-1, where clearly that thing was way above his security clearance and pay grade to even consider doing, but he did it anyway.
Well, yeah, because he was there to test GMs, not the GP.
But the point is, once freaking Law and Order came back and, his boss, South, was there and Captain Synapse was there, they could have said, no, freaking Burning's piloting this. You take the gym.
Yeah.
And that could have ended it there. And then South could have been all awesome and lasted till the end of Stardust Memory, or even ended it before Gato nuked the naval assembly.
Okay, so
that'd have been nice.
Just putting it out there.
So Gato steals the GPO-2. Ku hops into the GPO-1 to try and stop him. He fails. Gato gets away, and he basically wrecks the GPO-1, which they have to take to the moon and repair.
Mm-hmm.
So even after...
Yep, and they could have given it to South.
And he's also there to test GMs and not to pilot any Gundam Project suits. And yet he was still allowed to pilot the GPO-1, the GPO-3, and the Dodobrium, and...
Actually, no. The Dendrobium, he was not allowed to pilot. Synapse decided to make the executive decision and say, take it, and that was considered theft. Synapse was tried in a court-martial and executed for it, actually. Yeah, that's how Stardust Memory ends. Captain Synapse was tried and executed for letting Ko steal the Dendrobium.
And nothing
just
happened to Ko?
Stop Gato.
Nothing happened to Ko?
Somehow, Synapse's testimony for how things happened because he took responsibility as Ko's commanding officer. It took the blame off of Ko, and Synapse ended up paying the price for it. And then Ko, we find out, turns around and joins the Titans. Like, okay, loser.
Oh, so he turns into a huge dick.
He always was a huge dick.
So, like, not only in skill, but this is something we kind of see. It varies between series and pilots and capability, of course. But
yeah.
Ko also, like, the whole reason the GPO-1 gets wrecked is because he's like, no, my calculations are right. I fixed everything. Don't worry about it, Nina. Screw off. I'm smart. And then he didn't. Now, of course, like, the only other person we see do this really is, like, Amuro. And we can't really compare him to Amuro. But...
no, because Amuro knew what he was doing.
So, at least, like, someone like Shiro. Of course, this is different, but Shiro didn't really have to do those things. But had he, like, the general assumption is, had he had to do that kind of on-site maintenance or recalibration, he would have probably been close. And I think we see some of that maybe when they're, like, waiting for the Opulus or whatever to come through the valley in the desert. But generally speaking, Shiro, from a pilot perspective, and just like a kind of, I don't say commander, but because Ko's not.
He's a more badass dude. And
as an
Shiro's
old type,
better,
as a
period.
regular dude, handles combat in space and on Earth significantly better in arguably worse mobile suits against considerably stronger enemies most of the time.
Do you think that the fact that Ku was trying to get into Nina's panties had anything to do with the fact that he was able to pilot these suits that she was the head project lead on?
Oh, I guarantee you they probably had something to do with it. But at the same time, right,
So,
this whole bit was inspired from Top Gun.
So he was a crappy pilot,
Yes.
but maybe he's got a 12-inch you-know-what that Nina really likes.
I think that almost in a way, like, his relationship with Nina and therefore, like, in indirect relation to Gato makes him worse. Like, having a rival's fine or whatever, but, like Gato at several points in the series, like, is lecturing Ko mid-battle, and Ko's like, oh my god, yes sir, that's smart, and it's like, no, shut up. No, like, it's good advice, but shut up, Ko, don't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. It's,
You're not my dad.
Ko was not... He should not have been there for so many reasons.
Well,
But
you
yeah.
could say the same thing about Amuro, but he was, actually, ended up being a decent pilot.
Yeah, and he put his big boy pants
That
on.
also begs the question, and I don't know this off the top of my head, so I'll have to rely on you guys. Did the GPO-1 not have, like, a learning computer or something comparable?
I don't believe so.
They didn't have it equipped with that because the Gundam development project, the GP Gundams, were basically the final, like, Formula 1-esque styled Gundams of what would be known as the end of the first generation mobile suits, right? So these were
Old
top
times.
end of what they did of the first generation. So we're talking, the armor was on semi-monocoque frames, your basic mobility,
If
and then
you think about it, it's 3 years after Gundam NT.
yeah, but no, after not an NT, unless you're referring to
Alex.
0080 War in the Pocket, because NT now is narrative.
Sorry, yeah, I'm talking about Alex.
So basically it's right before development into the technology that but gives more flexibility and mobility to the second generation mobile suits, which use movable frame comes into play.
Yeah, because they went from the Grandpa Gundam to Alex, and then from Alex they went to the GP project.
but those were all still considered first-generation mobile suits. Even the Gym Quell, which is actually what started the movable frame concept. A lot of people don't really pay attention to that, but the Gym Quell, the way its arms are designed, is the start of the movable frame concept, which then gets incorporated into the Mark II from head to toe.
And then with 0083, you get into there's a GP00 that's never mentioned, and then
the Blossom,
and
yes.
then there's the GP04, which was canceled and then turned into the Gaburo Tetra.
Well, it's not that it was canceled. It was ready to go. It's just SEMA stole it.
Oh, it was stolen? I thought it was a canceled project.
They labeled it canceled to cover the fact it was stolen.
Ah, so it was stolen and then turned into the Gaburo Tetra. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I kept the name Gerbera. But anyway, enough. Do we want to keep going, or should we get to the last entry on this list
I think
here?
we've beaten this horse to death.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last guy that I mentioned previously is Chronicle Asher from Victory Gundam. Now, why is he on here? He's one of the main antagonists of Victory, and he's a real dastardly prick.
He looks like a douche.
He's not above, cold-blooded murder if it suits his purposes on the battlefield. But at the same time, he's got this weird sense of morality that he will try to avoid civilian casualties too. Now, why is he on this list? Because almost like the way Tomino wrote it, like a Saturday morning cartoon, just about every episode or every other episode, when he goes up against Uso spanks him so bad he has to get out of there with his tail between his legs, and he's lucky if his machine still works at the end of it. He goes through an entire laundry list by the time you get to his final episode of different machines before he finally gets killed.
Okay, so he's basically this show's Char then, because
No, he's Dick Dastardly. This show's Char is actually what's her name? Not Nina. I gotta find her name again.
Maria?
It's gonna bug me. No.
Shakti?
Katarzyna Luz. That's it. Katarzyna is basically the Char because she's actually closer to Flay Ulster in terms of her character.
I make the comparison because Amuro also wrecks a laundry list of mobile suits for Char as well.
Yes, but at the same time, Char didn't suck in terms that he actually would fight long and hard against Amuro, and it for a while felt like an even battle.
Okay.
Uso versus Chronicle never felt like that. It was always one-sided until Chronicle would show up with a new, bigger, badder machine, and that was only for about 5 minutes. You want to say something, Cody?
No, I'm good. I have no knowledge of Chronicle Asher, so
yeah,
he exists.
He's basically a Dick Dastardly of Gundam is the best way to put it.
I have to say that some of these mobile suits and mobile armor that he piloted are butt ugly. Like, what the hell is this? The Contillo.
Yep, like I said. And Uso spanks him hard almost every time. Usually at the cost of one of the Shrike team.
These suits, who designed this?
Those Zanskare heads all look like that. They're all ugly, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the other one of the other mobile suit lists that Tomino worked on.
They're very insectoidish.
Yep. Until you get to the giant motorcycles.
Giant motorcycles? They don't even list that here. They list the Recarl, the Shoka, the Zolat, the Zolo.
No.
Tomliat.
Check. The Zolo and the Tomliat, I think you'll see what I mean with their support craft. They have weird. They've got weird, like, spinny beam saber type beam shield that they use. They do a weird beam helicopter rotary wing thing to fly around in atmosphere.
They have a battleship that has wheels.
Yes, the giant motorcycle.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It doesn't look like a motorcycle to me. Oh, and it's got it's got a flight mode. They
yes.
take rubber tires up into space and they survive. Okay.
Yeah. You ain't seen nothing till you seen the freaking ridiculousness of Victory and G Gundam, because I tell you, I want to know what they were on for both of those series.
I'm gonna have to go through all the suits here. Okay, I know the Gunnies. Yeah, I know the Victory Gundam Hexa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The
oh my god, there is a. Okay, what is this? Oh god, that's another. They all look like bugs. The Zanuck.
That's just that head style is just what the Zanscares used.
The Gotralatin. The Meme Dorza. Oh god, these things are just dumb. I can't even pronounce this one. Domutalia.
Hang on, let me get to the
Jabako. The Brucking.
Okay, where are you in that list? The Rig Shokyu. I remember the Shokus.
They're listed as mobile weapons.
Shokus.
They're not even actually listed as mobile suits. That is
that's funny.
Interesting. Oh, the Abagor.
Yeah, or
wow. Yeah. You know what? These
or the
are,
Genga Ozo.
These are all based off of bugs. These all look like bugs. Get the Gedlav.
Yep.
These are awful.
Yeah. Why do you think Uso goes out of his way to blow up a lot of them?
Oh yeah, I mean.
Or the Gwigsy. The Gwigsy. Why did they make that machine?
The Grigsy?
The Gwigsy, spelled GW.
GW.
It literally looks like if the ball were a frog with...
I don't actually see that in the list here.
Here.
Oh my god.
Ball if it were a frog.
Yeah.
There's just like so many awful designs.
These are awful. Somebody actually got paid to make these? These, you know what? These make all the Turn A suits look like gold.
Right. Well, hey, no, you do not diss Sid Mead's work.
Like, there's a lot of really interesting things in, like the sumos.
In Victory? Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Turna. Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff in Turna as well.
There's a few weird ones.
The ridiculousness.
Yeah. Well,
in
there is a huge controversy with Turn A, Sid Mead, and Tomino. That could be a whole podcast unto itself, but...
Oh, I'm sure it can be, since that was Sunrise's decision to let him design machines for Gundam, wasn't it? It wasn't Tomino's?
No, and to get back at Bandai for doing that, because he wanted, I guess, a Japanese person to do it.
Yeah, because racism.
He put as little mobile suits in the show, so Bandai couldn't sell kits of them.
Well, and he put... Yeah, which was dumb, because Sid Mead's designs were so out there and so cool and so different, and you needed something to break up the oversaturation of yet another Zaku.
No, I do agree with that, yes. But anyway, let's get back to this pilot here, because I think we're getting close on 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Chronicle... I got not much more to say about Chronicle. He was a dirty thug. He had a weird sense of honor, and Uso killed him before the series ended.
Yeah, every time you say Chronicle, it reminds me of that Saturday Night Live skit, The Chronicles of Narnia.
Mm-hmm. And then the crazy hatcher of bees, because I can't think of a better way of describing Katagina Luz. That is Katagina Luz. She got probably what I would consider the best worst ending possible. She got the fate worse than death.
Which was?
From all of the new type whatever psychic lobotomy explosion stuff haunting her conscience by the end of Victory, she not only was purged of her memories, she was also left blind.
Sounds like a psychic lobotomy.
This was beyond psychic lobotomy. She was left permanently blind. Not amnesia. Her memory was completely erased.
So, super vegetable?
So she got... no, she was able to move around and speak and still function.
Oh.
It was a fate worse than death. It's awesome. She had it coming. Because she is awful and crazy. Like I said, she makes Flay Ulster look tame. Which is saying something, because I know at least one of you is a C10.
Yeah, no, Flay's nuts. So, I mean, it's easy to see, like, oh, yeah, no, this is worse.
Yeah, I could easily describe Katagina as being 100 times worse.
So in the wiki article that I'm reading here, in the notes and trivia section, it says that when they did the novelization, they changed it that she got badly burned during an attack, and Chronicle saves her. They take her for medical treatment at the Zanskar Empire Institute, and she goes an operation to become a cyber new type.
That doesn't surprise me. I'm pretty sure, because the series, she just starts naturally developing new type abilities.
And then in the novel,
just from all the exposure,
she's killed in the battle with the second V.
I'm reading that too. Interesting.
Yeah.
They decide to end that differently. It won't be the first time the novels end differently from what ends up becoming the series, right? So,
I'm really,
but no,
really shocked in Gundam V how the Gundam looks absolutely amazing, but all the Zanskar suits are just train wrecks. Like,
that's part of it is the Jovian influence. If you wanted to see one that doesn't look garbage, look for the Zan spine.
Yeah, Cody pasted. Oh, you did. Sorry. Yeah, the Zan spine is very nice. I like that.
Yeah, that's remnants of the Buck concern / Vanguard or Crossbone Vanguard coming through with that.
I like the second V.
And oddly enough. Well, the second V is basically the Victory Gundam with the V2's backpack.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
It looks good, though. Of course, the V-Dash looks amazing.
But yes, I just love the fact that Katagina in the anime gets a fate worse than death. Because she had it coming. Oh my god, did she ever have it coming. And I'm not saying that to sound like a misogynist. If you've seen Victory, you understand why I'm saying she had it coming.
So, Cody, do you want to do a quick judgment on who you think is the worst of the 4 pilots we just mentioned?
If I have to take a personal stance, I'm going to say Ko, just because I've had a long-standing hatred of Ko.
Ow!
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Ko.
That's my favorite anime.
Well, the anime's good. Ko isn't, because you very quick here. Ko isn't the main conflict in the story.
He's not the main draw.
He's the secondary conflict. If he didn't exist, the primary conflict probably wouldn't exist either. So he kind of feeds into it, and there's just a whole thing about his personality and just his story that. It feels like they got it right with Shiro to an extent. That he still has his own issues and everything, but normal old type cool pilot. He did it much better. Of course, this was like 5 or 6 years later, so understandable. But yeah, Ko. But in terms of actual piloting skills, it's by far Patrick Kosauer. He never, ever shows any ability to shoot anything down or even vaguely maneuver out of the way of attacks, aside from like not getting killed immediately.
How did he like even get into a suit? Like, jeez.
Yeah, and he was a test pilot for the AEU at the very beginning. He's like their best pilot.
Yeah, he was considered their elite pilot for the European Union. It was funny.
Awful pilot. But yes, personally, Ko, in practicality, it's absolutely Patrick, which is, I think, why he's a meme.
Yep, totally. I mean, stepped up against the Gundam first and won.
For the people who've made it this far, I can absolutely guarantee you someone is absolutely going to get super pissed at me for saying Ko is awful.
No, well, yeah, there's definitely co-lovers out there. And to you folks, we do apologize, but
I'm not pissed at you, Cody.
He's inexcusable.
I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. It's just a bunch of disappointment comments. Yep. Just, I'm disappointed. Luckily, we did this like almost 2 hours in, so like almost no one will hear it. So I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
Careful.
So,
yeah, watch this one be the podcast where everyone listens to the end.
Yeah, and then just starts flaming us for it. Come on, I like being done charbroiled. Just putting that out there now.
So I guess we should wrap this up because we're at 1 hour 45 minutes.
Yep,
I think we've covered
like
everything. So
time.
To reiterate, if you hate me or want to say you're disappointed in me for disliking Ko, put it in the comments. Preferably say everything else about all of the bad mobile suits we picked, because we prefer to see those. But this has been the 4th episode of the Gundam Story and Lore podcast. I've been the Spicer.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Pat. Remember to keep tuned for the next one.
Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.